sorry for the tardiness. We were having some technical difficulties this evening.
And Karen hates to be late.
And absolutely, you all have to know, it absolutely goes against my grain to be tardy for the party.
She is totally anal about that.
So I apologize profusely.
I don't. So that's why I have Karen. She can do all the apologizing. I can just go, it's the technology gods, you know? If you don't wave the chicken and make the sacrifice, this is what happens.
Yeah, what did we say? Moon in retrograde or
Mercury?
Mercury in retrograde, Carol. There we go.
Yeah, the moon hasn't gone retrograde as far as I know.
Oh, no, you're right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Again, I apologize for our lateness, but we're ready to start, and we're so excited to have you with us. So welcome to Spiritual Straight Talk with G.P. Walsh and myself, Karen Scarpula. Tonight's guest is Carol Look, EFT Master. We will be discussing putting an end to sabotaging ourselves and how do we start succeeding. Carol's a recognized and respected around the globe as a premier success and abundance coach, inspiring people to attract abundance into their lives by combining EFT and the law of attraction to clear limiting beliefs and build prosperity and consciousness. So welcome, Carol.
Hi, Karen. Hi, Greg.
Hey there.
How are you guys?
Excellent. Excellent.
We are great. Before we begin, I'd just like to remind everyone, if you want to ask a question, please press *6, and I'll be alerted that you have a question for either G or Carol. G, I know that you work closely with Carol. Can you share some insights with us into your EFT work and your experiences working together?
Well, no, actually, I'm fresh out of insights. Oops, wait, just got one. Okay, hold on.
Did you get one?
Yeah,
oh,
hold on.
Goodness, I was worried.
Just got one. Oh, yeah, cool, just in time. No, Carol is one of my favorite people on the whole planet, and I first found out about her right around the time I had just learned about EFT, and I'm always on the hunt for new techniques that are going to help people and shorten the path between bondage and freedom, between suffering and the alleviation of suffering. And so it really got my attention, and I was listening to, and I heard about the Tapping World Summit, which was the very first one that they had, and they had like 12 EFT mavens on there, and there was two people that stood out to me, and of all of them that really grabbed my attention, and one of them was Carol. Just the whole, and not just the competence, which was really obvious, but just the spirit that she had really touched me. And so I diligently said, well, okay, seems like it'd be a person to learn from. So I went and pretty much bought every product she had. Went through all of them. I had Carol Look's voice in my head for for a very long time, which frankly is a whole lot better than my own. I'm so tired of my own. It was refreshing. But so Carol went with me to the gym, to the park. She went with me when I ran. She went with me in the car as I learned how to do EFT. And when I decided that I wanted to actually master it myself, guess who I decided to go and train with? So, I'm regarded as an EFT expert, but I'm an expert at it because I had the best possible training available. So this is kind of a lesson on two levels. One is how wonderful Carol is, because as I've gotten to know her as a human being, she's just so delightful and warm and unassuming that it makes it really easy to learn from her. And the other thing that I always like to point out to people is, when you want to learn something, learn it. One thing that drives me nuts being a teacher is people who are dabblers. If you're going to put your energy and time and money into something, really do it. Throw your whole heart into it, and find the very best teaching that you can get and master it, because that's how you actually get to the place where you yourself are a master of it. And even to this day, when anybody asks me, well, who I need to, where do I get EFT training? I I send them to Carol. And what's really interesting is, there's a lot of people that have done a whole lot of different things with EFT. It's gone off into the chakras and matrix re-imprinting, and there's different schools of EFT thought now. It's almost like, sects of Buddhism or Christianity or something. But I always keep going back to Carol. I always keep going back here, even though I myself, if one of these people, have created also. I've got a program called Tapping on the Buddha, which is EFT in spiritual inquiry. So I'm not against going off into all these things, but whenever it's like whenever I get to some place and it's something new I learned, the first thing I do is go back and see what Carol said about it. It's when I was a music student in college. Studying as a composer, as a young composer, I would come up with all sorts of new fancy things. But whenever I came up against something, I was like, what do I do? I went back to Bach, I went back to Mozart, and I studied them because that's where it happened. That's where that they pretty much did everything. So I urge people to find the mentors and mavens in their life like I have, because I'm regarded as highly as I am because of the people that I've chosen to learn from. So as always, it's like this incredible honor for me to be actually hanging out with one of my mentors for an evening and talking about a subject that is so meaningful to both of us, which is EFT and energy healing. And Carol, by the way, you're free to tell them about my meltdown in PF Chang's if you like.
Well, now, Carol, that question was on the list, so I'm going to have to think about that later.
No, seriously, do I have to say anything after that introduction? What on earth could I say after that introduction? That was wonderful. Thank you very much. We had a good time, didn't we?
Didn't we ever?
Had a good time. That was a three-day workshop with such intensity.
Yes,
it was really, really incredible. But I agree with you, and that's what I did, is that I went back to the people that I wanted to study with. I studied for years with the founder of EFT, Gary Craig. I studied with one of the top people who trained under Roger Callahan, which is the first guy in the 80s who started the whole tapping movement.
Yes.
So, and I've learned a lot from teachers that aren't so good either. But I just, I learned that lesson too. But you can learn a lot from them. And I just studied, practice, studied, and have my own background in mental health. I'm a licensed social worker. I have a doctorate in clinical hypnosis. So I just love it. I love learning. I learn something new every day. I learn from my students. I learn from my clients. And I love helping people, and I love helping myself. So this tool, as you and I agree, Greg, this tool is talk about bang for the buck for simplicity. If you really want to get somewhere and you want to go deeply, you want to get somewhere, you want to go deeply, and you want to be able to do it yourself, maybe sometimes with practitioner help if you're working on trauma, but usually you can do it really on your own. Mm-hmm. I have not found anything that I like better. I have not found anything that's better in my hands, I say to people. I
haven't either, and I like you. I'm always on the lookout for, if something better comes along, I'm on it, right?
Yes.
But nothing has.
For listeners that might not know what EFT is, can you give just a quick overview? Because I get that question a lot from people. They've heard of it, but they're not really sure what the protocol is, what it is. Can you just, in a nutshell, explain it for those who might not know?
Sure. It combines traditional ancient Chinese medicine, the art of acupuncture, but we don't use needles. It combines that with modern psychology. And what we do is we tap on acupuncture points while we are tuned into the problem or conscious state that we want to change. And while we're tuned in, we tap on the energy points, we tap on the acupuncture points in order to clear any energetic congestion. So if you're quite anxious, you've got something going on in these, what they call the meridians or the circuits of energy. If you're depressed, you have something going on. If you're having cravings, you've got an imbalance going on in these meridians. If you're sabotaging yourself, you've got conflict and resistance going on. So what we do, I say to people, it's like calling up a file. You can't edit a Word document. If I sent you a letter by email, I can't edit it until I call it up. So you call up the file, you talk about the issue, you concentrate on what's going on, and then you use the tapping, just with your fingertips. You're tapping lightly, a light percussive movement on these acupuncture points, and that's what seems to calm down the stress response and calms you down while you're talking about and in the emotional, energetic place that you need to be in, which is focused on the issue.
And that's what's actually key. That it's one of the things that I loved so much about EFT is it didn't just try to put lipstick on the pig, right? I mean, it just wasn't pasting a happy face on. That it was really quite willing to dig into the underlying disturbances, the underlying traumas, the underlying material that was creating the behavior that was self-sabotaging and self-destructive, and it wasn't afraid to go there. And it's a major miracle in my mind to just tap on a few places and suddenly the body just gives up its secrets. I mean, it really is breathtaking.
Yes.
Well, and I love the idea that it really comes from a place of acupuncture. I mean, I think that makes sense to a lot of people. When you get acupuncture, it's helping to release that energy. So the whole idea of tapping in the same sort of places where you'd be getting that acupuncture makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, a Chinese medicine doctor would say, if you have any symptoms whatsoever, it means to us that you've got congestion in these circuits.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
any symptoms.
And any symptoms at all. So we just replace the acupuncture, the needles, with the tapping, which is this percussive movement that sends a little shock wave through these lines. And
it's also really good because acupuncture is not the kind of thing you want to try as a home remedy.
Right, exactly. No needles for me.
Hey, honey, where did I put my needles?
It's bad enough going together. It feels so great when you have it done, but it would not work out trying to do it to yourself at home. That would be a little difficult.
No. One of the things that I do love about it also, and I'm sure you guys do from what you know, is that I remember someone teaching me, I read it in a book or someone taught it in a workshop where they said treatment comes from outside of your body. Like if you have to take antibiotics, that would be considered a treatment, while healing comes from within your body. And I think I so like knowing that my body has the wisdom to heal itself. Yes, I'm tapping. Yes, I'm using the acupuncture points. Yes, I'm using my fingertips. But the idea that I have the capacity to heal myself without all these remedies from outside was very appealing to me. Back then, I had a pretty major illness that I was trying to get through around the same time. So I just love that idea that we can heal ourselves from inside. Sure, we need help. Sure, we need support. Sometimes we do need to go outside and get external remedies, but I love the idea of the internal sense of healing.
Amen.
Exactly.
I see EFT as a way of, it actually provides a space for the body to heal itself. It actually kind of helps relieve some of the energy that's been stuck there. And once that happens, it's like a river rushing down the riverbed. If a couple of big boulders, a couple of rocks pushed out away, and it'll pretty much get rid of the rest of it all by itself. I mean, we're talking about a 400 million year old machine, right? I mean, really. I mean, I think it really knows what to do. It's been around longer than me, so.
Right. and there's
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And there's so many pieces of EFT. People say, well, what's the primary piece? They've been trying to do really excellent research on it in the last few years. So people are debating what are the important pieces. So we're tapping on acupuncture points. Okay. We're focusing on the issue that we need to clear. So we're being honest and, talking about it and saying, here's my glitch, here's my conflict. We're entering the resistance. And then there's this interesting piece that some people think is kind of corny, other people think is brilliant, and which I think is an enormous part of it that's hard to measure, which is we say to ourselves while we're tapping, even though I have this problem, I deeply and completely accept myself. And we don't know how much healing comes from that. What we know is that most illness, mental and physical, can come from not accepting ourselves, from pushing against, from not saying I'm okay where I am. We're always trying to jump the fence and say, oh, I'm okay, I'm not hurt. What do you mean? I'm fine. The old F word, I'm fine. Well, we're not fine. We don't feel fine. We feel hurt and resentful or guilty or sad. And just that piece of working with the mechanics of tapping, saying, I accept myself right now. I think the validation is such a huge part. Of course, the tapping on the acupuncture parts is very effective, but that validation, when I do it in workshops and I talk to people about it, sometimes they stop after the validation and say, I've never been able to say that out loud.
Yes.
I've never been given the space to say, I feel terrible, I feel hurt, I feel angry, I feel sad. And it's such an enormous part that is often missing from some self-help work, where it's all about be different, and hurry up and be different. Right?
That's always been my complaint about self-help, is that it actually treats us the same way we were treated that created the aberrant behavior in the first place. I mean, if we had been accepted as children, we wouldn't have had these emotional problems. And so self-help often kind of goes in with its, army of tools to try to fix you yet again. And first off, it's harsh. It doesn't really provide an opening. And secondly, it's like it gets blown off. The nervous system's already perfectly defended against it. I mean, it's a waste of time. That statement, I have this problem, and I love and accept myself anyway, is like it is like the end of suppression. At that moment, if that sinks in, you're not suppressing anymore.
Yes.
I will often call it the coming clean statement.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, you're just kind of, this is really how I feel. Right. And then, sometimes people have a hard time saying, I accept myself anyway. And if they do, I say, okay, are you open to the possibility? I'm open to the possibility. And boy, all it takes, that little door to open, and the energy starts moving. I agree. It's hard to tell because it's such a beautiful continuum between the three things. It's hard to tell what's affecting what. But I know that to just get somebody to the point where they actually feel a little bit of self-acceptance without tapping, I find almost impossible.
Right. It's built into this system, so then I think they're willing to go along. I just came back from teaching a workshop outside of Paris, and it was done. I did it in English. My high school French came back a little bit, but not enough. So someone translated the whole workshop, which
wow,
fascinating. But after I was teaching technique and doing technique and technique this and technique that, and people coming up and tapping, I dropped that and did a mini discussion and lecture about validation alone, and it changed the entire tenor of the workshop. It was mostly to practitioners. Right. 90% of them were French speaking, and 10% also spoke English. And it was this turning point where I said, you know what? Let's stop trying, because they were trying to get from me how to do the technique right, even though they already did it right in their own practices. And I said, you know what? Let's get off the mechanics and get on the heart. The heart is validation. I deeply and completely accept myself, even though I'm embarrassed to feel hurt. And
I think that's a component you don't often hear about when people talk about EFT tapping, is that final component of it, which is the validation. So
some people have even dropped it. Some people have even dropped that out of the thing. I'm going, what? Are you kidding?
I know.
Is that to make the workshop tighter or shorter?
Shorter, as if it could be any shorter. That frustrates me, because they're missing they're missing the point. It is not simply the tapping on the points, on the acupuncture points, but saying, even though I have this problem, I accept myself anyway, is the most healing balm we could possibly give to ourselves and to others. And I've seen it for 17 years of tapping in the field on other people and on myself. So I always say, whenever I start an interview, I say, everybody, this particular phrase that we say while we're tapping this particular point, don't give it up. You don't need to shorten the process. 2 minutes isn't short enough. Come on.
Well, it's our mixed society, right? It's everything has to be so quick and immediate gratification, so it's not surprising. So talk to us, Carol, a little bit about sabotage. I was so intrigued when you and I talked about our topic for this evening. So tell us about sabotage and why do we get in our own way? Why do we do that?
Yeah, I love sabotage because I was such the queen of sabotage, and I had to work on every single angle possible, and I did. I learned how to clear my sabotage. We get in our own way for good reasons. The problem is we end up thinking, oh, we're so terrible, we sabotaged. Oh, I'm such a bad person, I procrastinated again. Or, oh, I'm so dumb. How could I be late? Or how could I be late with my resume? Or how come I messed up that meeting or that interview? And all we do is criticize ourselves instead of looking at the point of sabotage. Well, guess what, people? There is an upside to sabotaging yourself, or you wouldn't do it. It is a solution. And when I figured out that sabotage, let's say procrastination as an example, is a solution to something, it's like the choir started singing. It was, aha, I get it. Okay, I'm not a bad person. I'm just trying to do something. And usually it was trying to protect myself.
Yes.
So I say to people, what's the upside of sabotage or procrastination? They say, don't be silly. And I say, well, you didn't get the project done. How did it serve you? Ooh, well, I didn't get judged. Ooh, well, I didn't have to get it out there. Ooh, nobody gave me a B- or a C+ or an A-. Nobody graded me because I didn't get it done. Aha. So sabotage or procrastination solves some problem for you. Wanting to stay under the radar, not wanting to be criticized, whatever reason. Everybody has slightly different reasons for why they choose to hold themselves back. It is a choice. It may be unconscious, but it is a way to protect ourselves. You just have to figure out, what am I trying to avoid here? It's like people come to me and they say, I want to be successful. I want to attract abundance. And I say, well, what's up? You sabotaged to the point you were even late for the workshop. What's going on? Well, what are you trying not to do? And many of them will say, I don't want to, once they examine it, I don't want to stand out. I don't want someone to be mad at me. People are afraid of success and they're afraid of failure. A fear of failure became some kind of catchword and catchphrase in some decade with personal self-development. Fear of success is even bigger.
I agree.
Right? People are really afraid of the success happening. And then all these other changes that they suspect will happen might get in their way, or someone's going to be jealous or upset, or it's all about rocking the boat. Nobody wants to rock the boat. So if that means they put a lid on themselves and on their success in order to stay where they are, sabotage is serving a pretty good purpose to their, in their own mind, they think it is. So okay. I love sabotage because I did every kind of sabotage you could imagine.
Well, and I love that it's a solution. I mean, the reason why we do it is it's a solution. It's protecting us.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's say we identify that we're sabotaging ourselves. We're trying to stay invisible. What do we do with that information once we discover, okay, hey, I'm sabotaging myself. I'm trying to stay invisible. What's the next step?
Well, you want to continue to find out information about yourself, and this is actually along the same vein of, validation and acceptance. So you want to stay invisible. What's the upside? Keep asking the upside, the downside. What's the upside of staying invisible? Well, then I won't get hurt. When did you get hurt the last time? Well, the last time I was successful, someone yelled at me. Oh, and you sort of have to back up and follow the dots to why this would be so important. So let's say, Karen, you want to stay invisible for one reason, Greg would want to stay invisible for another reason, and I have maybe even a third reason to stay invisible. So keep asking the questions. Why is that important to you? How does it serve you to sabotage? And then they answer to be invisible, or they answer to not be successful. How does that serve you? Because then I won't get hurt. How does that serve you? And eventually you get to someone saying, because I'd never got over the last time I was criticized or hurt or judged or laughed at. Or the golfer I worked with that I always talk about who said, he was criticized and accused of being too serious because he was so good, right? So he sabotaged. He, acted like he couldn't play golf. The guy had a golf club in his hand since he was 2 years old. And suddenly the wheels come off. Why? Because it helped him. They all backed off and stopped saying, oh, you think you're so serious. So there are tons of reasons. So what you do with the information is I keep asking about it, keep getting to know the person or know myself about what's going on. Then that's when I formulate it into the EFT standard phrasing, and I use creativity and I use my intuition, but then I start to use EFT on whatever I discover is the target. Really good EFT means you've got a very clear target. You know what you're working on. You know what the feeling is. You know where you're trying to get, right? So if your target's really clear, And if the target is I'm afraid to be invisible, I'm afraid to be visible, that's really clear, and then you can get somewhere. The problem with beginning EFT people is that they don't quite know how to zone in or have that laser focus in on what's the real emotion that this person is struggling with? What's the real feeling that we are trying to get to here that's blocking the behavior? There's a lot of surface work done with tapping, which is fine. It's still getting somewhere, but if you really want to, go deep and really clear the issue, you want to really work on the heart of the matter, the real emotions that are in our way.
And you actually have to be willing to do that very systematically, one thing at a time. Because that first symptom that finally shows itself, I'm afraid of being visible, can actually have all sorts of little tentacles, all sorts of roots in all sorts of different places. And the actual trauma or event that triggered that thing might not even have anything to do with it.
Right.
I mean, there could be several layers before you get to the real issue around which the lack of freedom is being experienced. So it really is amazing. And EFT is another one of the things that it was really when I started EFT that I realized how stupid I really was. Because I used to be really proud of how perceptive I was, and I could see things, I see what was going on. But as I started really working with people through tapping, and I was just watching the energy system as it revealed itself, I was like, my God, I'm just hanging out here. I'm just like, I'm just kind of reacting. It's leading. I mean, the intelligence was so obvious and so innate, and I was just there to help it move, and I came down several notches in my own estimation as a result of that. Gladly so, because the capacity to heal is increased.
Yes, well, built into the system is safety.
Yes.
So into it is
always about safety,
right? It's built into it is owning it. Saying I'm okay anyway, I accept myself, I'm willing to move forward, or not. If you're not, you don't have to go anywhere, you don't need to go. So it's such a, that's so beautiful as far as, looking at the system and what happens. Suppose someone has, I'm afraid to rock the boat as their issue. Same thing you were saying, you got to go backwards and, keep digging and dig a little bit more. Why is rocking the boat dangerous? Why did it not feel good? When was the last time you rocked the boat with your success and it didn't end up in the place that you hoped it would end up? So there are many reasons that we protect ourselves, but EFT gives us, the tapping technique gives us the space to say, let me take a look at that. There's such flexibility in using it on yourself and on people. And I love it when I get the aha on myself, where it's like right in front of me. Right in front of me, and I missed it. Well, if you go slowly and you use the tapping and you have, really accurate targets, it's, hello, hello, defense mechanism, hello,
And what's really amazing is with the tapping, people, it's like people are willing to go there. Yes. Willing to go and visit places that they'd be terrified to go otherwise. Suddenly there's this wonderful benevolent space to find themselves in, and it's almost as if there's like this little bit of a buffer between the actual trauma. They can even experience the origin of a trauma without all the energy of the trauma. And if somebody who's actually gone through that period of time where it was all about ab reactions and gestalt and all of that where the cure can be as traumatic as the actual trauma you're trying to release. I mean, what a blessing that you can actually go through and release that energy without re-experiencing the trauma.
Right. It seems like there is an automatic net underneath us when we're doing it. Now, again, I do it all the time with other people, so they feel safe because they're in my presence and I'm holding the space, et cetera, et cetera. But they go do it by themselves, too, and say, wow, I just felt like I could go at my own speed. There's no rush, get to this point, goal setting. All that stuff is left behind. It's about healing and honoring and respecting what you're feeling in this moment. There's meditation in it just through those pieces of it. There is, just wonderful love and caring in it, whether you're doing it with yourself or with someone else. So it really gives people the impression, I'm okay, even though I have this really ugly feeling I don't like to admit, or this terrible thing happened and I don't want to go there. It really communicates to people, that's okay.
It's
and
okay.
I'm with you. I'm with you right now.
Yeah. I mean, you listen to us singing the praises of this, but it is a miracle. I mean, it is just absolutely remarkable. And I've been a meditator for decades, right? And I've been teaching it for decades, and it was pretty amazing because the only other place where I found that kind of open space where you would just let things happen is in meditation. The way when it's really taught, the kind of Zen meditation that I learned, which was really about self-experience with no agenda. And to this day, in my meditation, now that I have EFT, something will come up in meditation, and I'll tap during the meditation to provide more space for it to, and it's I'm have to do something with that because it really is remarkable, because I've seen people have traumatic experiences during meditation because a lot of stuff can come up and without a proper valve through which to process it.
Right.
EFT is done that for me. Some stuff will just start coming up, feelings you just don't know where they're coming from. So okay, I'll just keep tapping, and I'm sure the story will reveal itself. And sure enough, it does.
Right. Right. I mean, we're singing the praises because, excuse me, Karen, we're singing the praises because we've had so many experiences. I mean, when you've done a technique and the technique kind of belittles it a little bit because it talks about the mechanics, but it's really much more sophisticated than that. When you've done the technique, I've done it for 17 years out of my 22 years as a basic psychotherapist. Like,
were you just going to say as a shrink?
As a shrink. Don't say shrink.
You were just about to say as a shrink. That's great.
As a shrink. As a basic shrink. You either love it and keep using it and keep refining it and keep adapting it, or you say, it was a nice phase or a nice fad for 5, 6, 10 years, and I'm moving on to something else. And my not moving on to something else tells me the freshness, how brilliant it can be for other people, how much healing continues to happen in my life and in others. That's why I don't drop the tech. That's why I haven't dropped it.
Yeah.
That's why it is still the main one. And I do Qigong, I do exercise, I do meditation, I use music. Not that I don't use anything else, but as far as healing, and healing not just trauma, healing basic beliefs about ourselves. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I don't deserve to be successful, so therefore I sabotage. You name it. Every audience member could come up with, well, could you use it on this belief? I really have had this forever about me or my family. And our answer would be yes.
Yeah, this is interesting. Beliefs are caused by energetic disruptions as well. People think that beliefs are something we have all this conscious control over. Beliefs aren't conscious either. Even your conscious ones aren't really conscious. There's an energy structure underneath. And experiences that you've had that have caused you to create beliefs about the experiences. If those experiences weren't there, you wouldn't have those beliefs. And it really is remarkable that somebody could really affirm that this is what they're like, and just a few moments of tapping, and suddenly it's like, oh, that doesn't seem so true.
Right, doesn't seem so true. And when did I make that vow?
That's right.
And when did I make the contract with myself to say that I'll never do this again, or all people are...
Why did I do that again?
Right.
Yeah.
I always say to people, beliefs are compulsive, and they say, well, what do you mean? Well, when it's compulsive, you don't have control. You have to follow it. It's a compulsive drinker has to drink. A compulsive eater eats no matter what. The compulsivity has its own energy, and beliefs are compulsive. So if you believe you're not good enough, you are showing it, you are doing it, you are behaving that way, you are leading with a big sign that says, I'm not good enough.
That's right. You have the kick me sign on your back.
Yes, you do. You can't, So that's why we love using it for beliefs so much, because you can change someone's life between lunch and dinner, I'm telling you.
Your passion does really come through, Carol. And I love this whole idea of validation, too. I think that's such an important part of any of the work that we do, is to understand that we are okay, and that whole idea of validating wherever we might be at any given time.
Any given time, any place we are. Otherwise, we can't work candidly on our issues. If we have to be fine and we have to be okay, how do you ever admit that you're embarrassed or ashamed?
Exactly.
Right? If you have to say, I'm fine, I'm strong, I'm good, how do you ever say that you're hurt and that your feelings were hurt and that you're surprised and you got that sting of tears when someone said something? You can't go there if you have to have the stiff upper lip and be fine.
Exactly. And it's the whole idea that you have to be fine all the time, that you have to be happy and, you have to put on a brave face all the time. Well, I love the idea that it's okay to say, hey, that hurt, or hey, I'm not feeling great right now. And I really like the idea of it's a healing process.
Hey everybody, this is G, and I am so happy to announce it has finally been released, the Just Allow It Mini Meditations mobile app for iPhone, iPad, and Android. I've teamed up with the brain entrainment audio technology expert, Don McCarty, and we have created an entirely new environment for creating meditation applications, meditation CDs, and meditation MP3 downloads. We're calling it Spirit Technology, and its intention is to provide you with the path of least resistance between you and a clear mind. As a matter of fact, we're starting a whole new organization together called Clear Mind Sound. So the new Just Allow It mini meditations give you a deeper meditation experience, make it easier for you to get into the meditative state and make those dramatic shifts in your life that you really, really want to make. But not only that, we've added environmental sounds. So you can choose to add in the sounds of birds chirping in the forest at night, of crickets and peeper frogs, of rainstorm and ocean waves, ambient sounds that you can choose and mix in yourself. And you can mix in the amount of voice, the amount of brain entrainment and music, the amount of ambience. You can all mix it together to your taste. So you can get the application by just going to our new website, clearmindsound.com. Click on the products tab and pick out the version of the mini meditations you like. The app, the CD, or the download. So visit clearmindsound.com to find out what we're up to, what I'm up to on all this new meditation technology that I'm going to be bringing to you, and get your copy of the Just Allow It mini meditations. Now back to the show.
Such a healing process. Did I ever tell you, Greg, Karen, I'm new to you, but to Greg, the first thing I healed on myself was long-term insomnia.
Yes.
Do you remember that? It was, and I had to be able to understand that my insomnia was completely made out of anxiety. What's he going to say tomorrow? What's she going to do tomorrow? I was in a very stressful job with a supervisor I didn't like, but more importantly, the clients I was taking care of were, just really, really tough. And I stayed up at night fussing and monkey minding in order to feel like I was in control over a life and a job and feelings that felt out of control. And this was a long time. I'm not talking about 3 months of insomnia. And I started tapping. It was in the very beginning, and I was tapping on my clients' anxiety. They came in for a quit smoking and weight loss and anxiety and what have you. And I just kept tapping with them on anxiety. Even though I have this anxiety, I deeply and completely accept myself. And I woke up one day and said, that's really weird. I think I fell asleep last night. I mean, talk about the duh moment we have with EFT. I wonder if tapping's working on my system or not. I wonder how that happened.
One of the first tapping clients I had was a guy with insomnia, and he hadn't slept more than 45 minutes at a stretch for 10 years.
Wow.
It took me 15 seconds. That's all it took. Yeah. I mean, it was obviously not that deep of a thing. There weren't a lot of layers to it. That night, he slept 8 hours straight for the first time in 10 years.
Yes. Yes, and that's the kind of stuff you and I see, the stuff about...
You go, holy mackerel.
Yes. Yeah, how can you not? And, you might be waiting after working 2 or 3 years with EFT, waiting for the stuff to stop working, and it doesn't stop working.
It doesn't stop working.
Stop working.
Even the ones that take a long time. I mean, that's one of the, the 1 minute miracles that we hear about, but even the stuff that takes a little bit longer. I've just never had a session where the person, where nothing happened.
Right. Right.
There was always some kind of progress. Sometimes some of our traumas go really deep, and there's a lot of layers to them, and it takes a while to get through them all. But those layers collapse, and they collapse, and they collapse, and eventually it's just this nice straight road. And people always walk out with a feeling of being relieved, of being taken care of being more loved than they were when they started. Which I really love what you had to say about the fact that it's way more than a technique. This is way more than tapping on parts of your body. The way acupuncture is way more than sticking pins in. I mean, we're talking about thousands of years of people studying nature, of studying the way energy works, of studying the way things actually are. And it grew out of the Tao, right?
Right. And sometimes I'll get people in workshops that are really skeptical, and they'll say, "How do you know we have energy in our body?" And I'm like, okay, have you been hooked up to an EKG or an EEG recently? They measure the electrical output. I fainted on the street when I was doing my speed walking, and I was sent to a doctor, and they tried to find out everything. And of course, there was nothing wrong, but they tried to hook me up, and they did, and electrical output is coming out because we're made of electricity. And once we pass over, we no longer have that level of electricity in our body, but that's what's going on inside
And it weighs
of us.
21 grams, by the way.
Yes, right.
Sorry, it's real.
It's real. So it is new. I mean, I had to get over sort of my left brain work and where I came from as far as my training, and I just put aside the skepticism when it kept working. When people would come back to me and say, "What are you doing? What is going on? I haven't felt like this in a long time. Either I'm sleeping or I'm not eating sugar," the people would say, or I feel better when my relationship or the pain is gone for the first time in 10 years, whatever it was. They'd be saying to me, "Okay, I was totally skeptical last week, but my ears are open." Could explain, because in the beginning I didn't know how to explain it well, so I thought it's going to waste time. It's going to be in my left brain. It's going to be in there. Let's just do it. So I would say I have this new stress relief technique. Let's just do it for 5 minutes, and if you don't like it, I'll give you 5 minutes at the end of the session, so there's no loss. But I didn't want to get caught up in the words and what it's like, and it's based on this. And they would come back and say, "Wow, what is going on here?" And most of them had trouble practicing by themselves. They were afraid they were going to do it wrong, afraid they wouldn't say the words correctly or whatever. And once you do it a few times, you get the cadence, you get the rhythm, you start to play with your own wording and intuition. You want to be accurate and you want to be focused on what you're working on, but it's not complicated. We're complicated and we make it complicated, but it as a tool is not complicated.
No, it's not. And you know what? Nobody knows what energy is.
Right.
Hey, do you know how this works? I know it works because it works. Do I know what it is? No. But you know what? I don't know what electricity is either.
Right.
But I'm really good at light switches. I've even mastered a dimmer. So,
right.
so I mean, the reality is nobody knows what energy is. It's a total mystery.
Right.
Well, Carol, I'd love you to take some time and tell us about some of the upcoming workshops that you have for those of us that would like to study EFT more.
I have a fun one coming up, not until March, but it's at the famous Kripalu organization up in Western Mass, which is a yoga institute.
It's
and
a beautiful place.
Yeah, isn't it gorgeous? And it's a 3-day workshop. It starts Friday night, ends Sunday, and it's about success. That's about how to clear your blocks to success and clear the sabotage. So that's going to be in March of this coming year, and that's fun. And then I'm going to do just an evening one in New York City in February. And then I have a coaching program where I'm teaching people through my coaches. I'm teaching them how to become abundance coaches and how to work on their own abundance and success issues. Because, I started with addictions because I was working in an addiction agency, and then I was a hypnotist. So I worked with weight loss and smoking. And then I started to move into these other areas where it's so powerful. These feelings that we have and these beliefs we have that say to us, "I'm not allowed to be successful. I don't have what it takes." And, so I started doing work with that. So I do this abundance coaching program, which is launched every quarter. So I'm just having a good time in my work. I just love what I do. I love training other people. I love doing mentoring groups. I love learning myself. It's just, I'm having a very good time.
You can tell. It definitely comes through. And you've also written a couple books. Did you want to talk about those as well?
Yes, I have Attracting Abundance with EFT, which was sort of a classic in the field about how to use tapping for abundance. And then I wrote a couple for Amazon. I did Stop Feeling Lazy, How to Break the Procrastination Cycle.
I love that title.
Yeah. And I'm about to launch, it's launching this week, or it's in pre-sales, Enough is Enough, How to Stop Emotional Overeating. So
that is a great title, too.
So lots of help out there for people who really feel like, what's my problem? I can't seem to get my hands around this. Well, it's because you're sabotaging yourself, and your beliefs win. Mm-hmm. Beliefs and tough feelings win. So all we need is a tool. I was never taught these tools as a kid. I was taught to work harder and be tougher and work longer hours. I wasn't taught energy tools. Are you kidding? So now we have them. So now it's our job to teach them and spread them around and help as many people as possible.
Yeah, Isn't it funny it existed back then? We just didn't know it.
I know.
Yeah. Well, gee, we have a few minutes before we have to wrap things up. Can you give us your insight? I always say that word insights. I know you always make fun of me. Are you ready with another insight yet?
Let me check. Angels are coming. The angels are coming. The angels are coming.
Sometimes he has two in a day.
As always, when I talk with Carol, it's like impossible to put a cap on it because the energy just gets so high.
I know.
I just want. My mission in life is to make people realize that this is easier than it's ever been. That if there's anything you want to really improve, fix, or change about yourself, it all starts with this beautiful sense of self-acceptance of where you are right now. And there are tools available to make this whole process so much easier. And they're readily available if you'll just seek them out. I mean, and not only do they make your life better, they make it possible for you to make other people's life better. And it's just fun. It is so much fun to discover who you really are, to discover all the potential that you actually have. It's even fun to find all of the things that were holding you down turn out to be nothing but just unconscious patterns that are easily disposed of, and beliefs we've held about ourselves that simply aren't true. That underneath this whole thing, you're really not broken.
Right.
The system is functioning perfectly. It's not functioning the way you want it to, but it's functioning perfectly. It was programmed to protect you. It perceives a particular thing as a threat, so it creates behavior to make sure to avoid it. You perceive that as a self-sabotage. What it really is the system said, "Oh, I don't think that's good for you. It wasn't last time. It's not going to be this time." Boom, this is the behavior that gets put into place. It's simply that automatic response that we need to break that connection. When that's broken, a whole new set of behavior can emerge. And the system, of course, is so smart that the moment it doesn't need that, it abandons it, and it immediately begins to reorganize itself on a higher level. And that's what we call freedom. So I just really urge everybody to check this out. I recommend EFT to everybody. It doesn't even matter. If somebody comes to me and wants to study Advaita Vedanta, we do it with EFT. Because there are blocks to even the deepest spiritual inquiry that have nothing to do with the inquiry.
Right.
It's all about the energy. And one of the things that I see that is really, really meaningful to me, because I'm primarily a spiritual teacher, is how spiritual teachers have begun to realize that the process of emotional healing is as important to spiritual awakening as the inquiry is. And to me, that's a huge breakthrough. And so I'm just, as always, I'm going to recommend everybody get everything Carol has ever done and go through it. It's kind of like, I don't care what else you do, get that first. That's what I did. That's what I did. And we never did get to the meltdown of P.F. Chang's. We'll have to have you back.
That's to be continued. Remember, it's fun to feel good. When I could drop some of my anxiety, wow, was life a lot more fun.
That's right. Happiness feels good. Imagine that.
But I lived with it my whole life. I say to people, I was born anxious. How did I know? How did I know there was another way? I didn't until I was given the right tools, right?
Yes.
So it is fun to feel good. More importantly, it's fun to feel empowered. It's fun to enjoy other people and not feel threatened all the time. I say to people, if you grow up in France, you're going to speak French because you can't help it. Just what you were saying, Greg. So you grew up in your family. I grew up in my family. Karen, you grew up in yours. So we all have those templates that we were taught because we were great students. We were brilliant 6-year-olds who took it on. So, but there's a way to change, and we just never knew how easy change was.
So before we leave this tonight, thanks so much for being here, Carol. It means a lot to me, obviously, being one of my most important mentors and my real educator in EFT. The last thing you said just really touches me very deeply, and I want to bring that back as one of those Law of Attraction 2.0 moments, and that is change doesn't have to be slow. It used to be, but we didn't really understand much back then. The days of Freud and then Jung and then behaviorism and then Gestalt and experiential and abreactions. We have learned an enormous amount since then, and it doesn't take as much as it used to. It doesn't require a reliving of the trauma in order to let go of a trauma. It doesn't require you to relive the pain in order to be released from the effect of the pain. I think we live in a most marvelous time wherein we have access to techniques and technologies and teachings and learnings that have made it very, very that made the nervous system, the remarkable, intricate complexity of the nervous system and the functioning of the human system actually understandable by us to the point where we can work with it naturally and effectively simply by following its own nature. The only thing EFT does is obey the natural order of things. It obeys the natural way in which the energy system of the body functions. And by honoring it and embracing it and working with it the way it is, rather than trying to force it into something that isn't, you find that it is quite malleable. It is quite willing to be bent to your will. It's quite willing to flow down the channels that you ask it to flow down. You just can't stop it from flowing. Energy will flow anywhere. It'll take any form. It'll do anything. It'll do whatever you like it to do, but you can't stop it from flowing. You can't violate its nature and expect to get the good results from it. That, to me, is the key to the real revolution in healing to me, which is not really a revolution. We've discovered it here lately. Those who practiced Oriental Chinese medicine for thousands of years got this right away. Matter of fact, other cultures have gotten this right away. As they say in Zen, it's easier to ride a horse in the direction it's going. The waves go into the shore. You can either fight against them or you can get out your surfboard. The choice is yours. You can't manipulate nature. You can only work with it. But when you do, you find that it's more than willing to lay out for you whatever it is you're asking for. You find that it is totally loving and benevolent. You find that the name Mother Nature was not a misnomer, that it's very, very much earned. I urge you all to look deeply into the new things that are available to you, especially EFT, which is my personal favorite. And if you do, make sure you check out things by Carol, because to me, she is the best teacher out there.
Well, I encourage everyone to go to our website to check out what Carol has to offer. There's a great link if you go to www.loa20.com. Check on our guest page, and Carol will have a page there, and it'll link directly back to her website, and you can check out all the product offerings she's got. Carol, it was such a pleasure having you this evening. You have such great energy. G had warned me, and he did not lie.
Thank you. It was great connecting with you, Karen, through emails and setting this up. And GPW, as always, it's been a pleasure.
Well, I hope that you will consider coming again, Carol. We would love to have you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, Carol and G. Please join us next week as our guest will be Christy Whitman, author on the topic of abundance, attraction, and allowing. She'll be speaking to us about those. Remember, you can send your questions ahead of time, or if you just want to join the conversation, go to www.loa20.com. Thank you again, Carol, for joining us. I appreciate you taking time out of your evening. And thank you to all of our listeners for calling in. We hope you'll join us next week for more Straight Talk. Good night, everyone.
Good night.